Hey guys, welcome back again to Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, where the proof is in the singing. I'm doing the top 20 greatest male rock vocalists of all time, starting with number 20 and working my way towards number 1. Now this was a little difficult because where do you draw the line between a rock singer, a metal singer, a postmodern rock singer, a punk singer, a scream singer? They certainly can't all fit in the same category. So I really tried to do a good job on what would be considered a rock singer opposed to a metal singer. Now, there is a little crossover. So for example, it's hard to call David Coverdale just a metal singer, even though maybe his claim to fame was more in the metal years of Whitesnake. So I think it's only fair to put him in the rock category, and maybe there's some overlap where I might have a singer or two like Ronnie James Dio. But when it came to somebody like, let's say, a Rob Halford or whomever, I tried to keep, things in respective categories, so maybe he would be considered more of a metal singer. So if you feel that your guy wasn't mentioned in the rock male category, please don't be too discouraged. Check out the male top 20 male best singers of all time. But also I'm doing some special mentions at the end of this one also, so please stick around for that. So if your person didn't get mentioned, he or is probably in the special mention. Now, I'm also doing female. I'm also doing, some other genres as well. So with that said, the starting at number 20 would be Lemmy Kilmister, coming in at 20. One of the best male rock singers and just performers of all time. So here's Lemmy. Next up is John Fogerty. Now, what's interesting about John is not only was he a great, singer, songwriter, engineer, etc. The songs and albums that he produced that had the giant impact that they've had for the last 40, some odd 50 years, finished in 1973. That's a long time ago, and I know he got in a big dispute with his label, and it wasn't until like 1985 before he kind of got out of that quagmire. But anyway, what's also interesting about John is he served in the Army Reserves when he was younger, probably why he wrote the song Fortunate One, Fortunate Son. And I know that he wanted to be a musician's musician. He looked up to Chet Atkins and other really great guitar players. So with that said, let's check out John Fogerty. Next in line is Steve Walsh from Kansas. Now, Steve is an interesting guy because Steve and maybe Lou Gramm and maybe even Paul Rodgers and some others sort of slipped through the cracks and didn't get quite the notoriety that they deserve. But Steve was definitely a huge influence for me. Try to sing some of his stuff, you'll see what I'm talking about. Killer range, great tone, fantastic pitch, just a phenomenal keyboard player, great showman, musician, all around extremely talented guy. So next up, Steve Walsh.
Don't hang your heart, when nothing lasts forever but the earth and sky. Well, it slips away, and all your money won't another minute by. Oh.
Next up to bat is Mickey Thomas from Starship. And for those of you that go way back, you might remember Elvin Bishop, the song Fooled Around and Fell in Love. I did a version of that myself. I'll put that in the description. And I also did a version of Jane with my student Gabriela Gunchikova. We'll put that in the description. And as we go along, we've covered a lot of these artists like, Steve Walsh, we've already talked about, John Fogerty, all the different songs that either myself have covered or one of my students have covered. We'll put that in the description so you see how we stacked up to the original, because I am a singing academy and I have a singing course called How to Sing Better Than Anyone Else, where I teach you guys and walk you through step by step how to achieve these different kinds of greatnesses with all these different amazing singers. So I can remember obviously Sarah, Built This City. I mean, just Mickey Thomas was a huge inspiration for me. So here's Mickey. Okay, next up is Ian Gillan from Deep Purple. Ian was just an icon that inspired so many of us as singers, certainly myself, and I actually did Child in Time, and I also did Highway Star and Perfect Strangers. Now, I'm not sure if Perfect Strangers is going to release before I put this out, but I'll put that in the description. But we all know Ian also from Jesus Christ Superstar and his phenomenal performance of Gethsemane. So here's Ian. All right, next in is Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones. I don't think there could be a top 20 best rock male vocalist of all time without including Mick. He's probably one of the longest standing rock singers ever. So with that said, here is Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones. Next up is Klaus Meine from the Scorpions. Now, Klaus, again, is another legend that has just been out there doing this for a very long time. And the Scorpions are interesting because they're one of those bands that could do a really heavy metal set, and yet their ballads are really kind of what they're known for throughout Europe in the pop world. So they have the metal side, and they've got, Still Loving You, Winds of Change, etc. Now, I did a version myself of Still Loving You. I'll put that in the description. We also did Wind of Change. We'll put that in there as well. I think we also did Rock You Like a Hurricane. And I had the privilege of being signed to Dieter Dierks, which was the producer of the Scorpions way back in the day. Got a chance to work with the band Accept and for a minute there. With that said, let's check out Klaus Meine and the Scorpions. Cruising up the ranks is Lou Gramm from Foreigner. Oh, I love Lou's voice. I just think he has the golden throat, golden tone of what you really want in a belting, wailing rock singer. The guy could sing a ballad like it was nothing. He could sing a rock song like it was nothing. His tone, his pitch, his phrasing, his power, his range, just a phenomenal guy. I've done quite a few Foreigner pieces, so I'll put those in the description. You can check out. Again, you'll see how much I love Lou because I sound a little bit like him. Definitely aspired towards him as a youngster growing up. And again, just sings amazing ballads and you name it, just Lou Gramm and Foreigner. So in comes Lou Gramm. Check it out. Wiggling his way into the top 20 is Brad Delp from Boston. Now, Brad was sort of the soundtrack of my early life, and man, I remember hearing the first Boston One album. It was like, wow, what an incredibly produced album. His gorgeous high-range vocals, stunning melodies, just memorable stuff, great musicianship, to the extent that I recently sang More Than a Feeling. I'll put that in the description. I also sang Smokin' a while back. I'll put that in the description as well. Very hard tune to do is More Than a Feeling. And just again, like I said, the soundtrack of my life, maybe yours as well. But here's Brad Delp from Boston. Next, we have Bryan Adams. Now, Bryan was just one of those amazing, distorted, perfect tone, growly kind of Canadian rock singers that we all come to know and love. Could write a good rock song, amazing ballad, and some incredible movie soundtrack stuff. I mean, just gut-wrenching, take your heart on the floor and step on it kind of stuff. So, always loved Bryan Adams. I actually did Summer of '69. I'll put that in the description. You can see how I did. And let's check out Bryan Adams.
On your mama's porch, you told me that it lasts forever. And when you held my hand, I knew that it was now or never. Those were the best days of my life.
Next up to bat is Bon Scott from AC/DC, the original singer, with some of the most incredible, timeless, legendary songs of all time, and went on to inspire Brian Johnson to continue to hold the torch of AC/DC. Now, I've done some AC/DC myself. I'll put some of that in the description. How to sing like AC/DC is pretty tough to do, and again, maybe one of the most influential bands, rock bands of all time. So here's Bon Scott. There is no way you could do a top 20 greatest male rock vocalists of all time without including Steve Perry from Journey. Now, Steve was amazing because he just literally raised the bar and set the precedent for a whole new level of singing. Kind of like Mickey Thomas and Brad Delp, as we mentioned, some high-range singers. Steve Perry just set that bar so high that it was very difficult to match and was just flawless night after night in Journey. Now, I've done some Journey, and my students have done some Journey. I'm going to put that in the description. You can see how we stack up, and let's check out Steve Perry.
It won't be long, yes, till you're alone with your lover. Oh, he hasn't come home, 'cause he's loving who he's touching, he's squeezing.
Next up is Brian Johnson from AC/DC. Now, Brian picked up the torch where Bon left off, and some pretty hard shoes to fill, and some pretty scrutinizing fans that were sitting there with their arms crossed waiting to see Brian if he could actually pull it off. And obviously he has. So here is Brian Johnson from AC/DC.
She was a fast machine, she kept the motor clean. Was the best damn woman that I ever seen. She had the sightless eyes, telling me no lies, knocking me out with those American thighs.
Zeroing in on the top 10 is my cousin Sammy Hagar. Now, you guys may remember all the way back from Montrose. It was some of my early youth rock and roll. Gives away my age there, 56. And Bad Motor Scooter, Rock the Nation, Rock Candy. You guys probably remember that from Montrose. Sammy went on to have a very successful career, and then obviously joined Van Halen, another very, very successful career, and has continued to move on and do solo stuff. So here's Sammy. Now we have Mr. Glenn Hughes, obviously from Deep Purple and many projects since. Now, Glenn is actually called the voice of rock, so of course he's going to be in the top 20 best male rock vocalists of all time. And I remember just, I know him and Coverdale, but early songs, Mistreated, Burn, all the crazy Deep Purple stuff. But Glenn's gone on to do a lot of amazing things. I've covered some of Glenn's stuff. I'll put that in the description. You can see how well I did. I also did some stuff with my student Gabriela Gunchikova. You can see how she did. But Glenn is just a force to be reckoned with, and we're going to check him out now. Obviously, making the top 10 is Paul Rodgers, one of the greatest male rock vocalists of all time, and maybe one of the most influential male rock vocalists of all time. Now, I've done some Paul Rodgers in Bad Company myself. I'm going to put that in the description. You can check out how I did. But Paul has gone on from having, Brian May of Queen, Pete Townsend of The Who, you name it, sings Paul's praises. And Paul is out there doing it to this very day with his golden throat, his bluesy style, his gritty vocals, his perfect pitch, and just his an amazing soulful voice. Let's hear it from Paul.
Freedom is the only thing means a damn to me. Oh, we're gonna make a child.
This next vocalist needs very little introduction. It's Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. Now, Steven has got this incredible, bombastic, flamboyant character, and we know him all the way back from early Aerosmith, from Toys in the Attic, Walk This Way, Sweet Emotion, Dream On, which I did a version of, by the way. I'll put that in the description. You can see how I did. And then his synergy that he did with Run DMC for Walk This Way. And then going on to do incredible movie soundtracks, American Idol. I mean, the guy's rather ubiquitous, if you ask me. But anyway, let's Walk This Way and Dream On with Steven Tyler. Here we go.
Dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on.
Continuing to close in on the top 5 is David Coverdale from Whitesnake. Obviously, he was also from Deep Purple, one of my greatest vocal influences of all time. In fact, I've done some Deep Purple, I've done some Whitesnake. I'll put that in the description. Mistreated, Here I Go Again, all kinds of great stuff. And I also did some stuff with my student Gabriela Gunchica, but I'll put that in the description as well. David Coverdale is just the roaring lion of male rock vocalists, and definitely couldn't do a top 20 without him. Here is Mr. David Coverdale. Next up, we have Mr. Ronnie James Dio. Now, Dio probably has the ultimate rock voice. It's big, it's powerful, it's gritty, it's authoritative, it's Ronnie James Dio. And I think it's interesting that most of these great singers from Dio and Coverdale and Glenn Hughes and Ian Gillan and all these fantastic singers that are all in the top 20 came from Deep Purple, Black Sabbath Deep Purple era, right? That's pretty phenomenal. And it's kind of also interesting too that not many of these singers have been matched to their authority, their longevity, just their creativity, and everything that surrounds them as fantastic singers for that many decades since Deep Purple. So here we have Mr. Ronnie James Dio.
We are coming.
Coming in at number 2 is none other than Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. Now, Robert has probably influenced more singers than any other rock singer I can think of all time. And the interesting thing about Led Zeppelin is their career wasn't that long. I mean, they only toured a few years, and they did put out some of the most timeless, amazing rock classics of all time. But I do think it's interesting that Led Zeppelin, in the short time that they toured, was able to have such tremendous influence over all of rock music. So with that said, let's do Robert Plant. Coming in at number 1 is none other than Freddie Mercury from Queen. Now, in fairness, guys, any one of these top 5-ish guys could have come in at the number 1 slot. Most of this was done by vote on Facebook and on YouTube, so we just allowed and let the mob speak and bring number 1. But Freddie, just a phenomenally talented guy, as you know, a great songwriter, a great singer, a great performer, a great lyricist, a great instrumentalist, a great showman, just crazy great showman, and great range, great tone, great phrasing, great pitch, all around just an incredible talented musician. So it wasn't just his voice that got him to number 1, it was the total package. Now, I have a singing course. It's called How to Sing Better Than Anyone Else. You can find it right here at KenTamplinVocalAcademy.com, where the proof is in the singing, where we negotiate and discuss all the different kinds of nuances that made these guys great in hopes to help make you great should you be interested in wanting to learn how to sing. Definitely stick around for the special mentions that are coming up after this. If we missed one of your favorite guys or girls, they're probably in the special mentions. It'll be guys in special mentions. But I'm also doing top metal vocalists, both male and female. We're going to do top modern vocalists. Those will come up in separate videos. So stay tuned for those as well, and check out Freddie Mercury.
Lady, when you're with me, I'm smiling.
Well, since my baby left me, I found a new place to dwell. But it's down at the end of Lonely Street, that Heartbreak Hotel.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, now touch me, babe. Can't you see that I am not afraid? What was that promise that you made?
Oh, can't you see you belong to me? I'm a poor ex with every step you take.
When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. Well, I stop and I turn and I go for a ride. And I get to the bottom and I see you again. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm free falling. My legs are still in school. I love you, honey. Born down in a dead man's town. First kick I took was when I hit the ground. End up like a dog that's been beat too much till you spend half your life covering up now. Took a look down a westbound road. Right away I made my choice. Headed out to my big two-wheeler. I was tired of my own voice. I can see you, your brown skin shining in the sun. You got your hair combed back and your sunglasses on, babe. 11 hours in the tin can. God, there's got to be a better way. But who are you? Oh, mama, I feel gears on my lap. Been ready hot, first on my head. I'll bring you diamonds right. Every days that we let slide. I can remember standing by the wall. Because in the midnight hour, she got more. Yeah, with a rebel, yeah, she got more. Lonely is the night when you find yourself alone. Your demons come to light, since your mind is not your own. In the night, oh no, oh no, in the name of love. In the night, oh no, in the name of love. Don't you talk to angels now. They call around my hurt name. I'm coming back.